The Grappling Hour is brought to you by Luda Gear, athletic support items created by grapplers for grapplers.
Yeah. Check it out.
Good afternoon, everybody. Is your good friend Rafa Sparza saying hello on this lovely day for grappling. You may notice something. Well, today is actually season 2 of the Grappling Hour, and couldn't be happier that you guys have been so instrumental in making this a big, big thing. I mean, we have a banner now. Look at this. Isn't that cool? It's not bad, you know? I mean, here's the thing. I was supposed to use this banner this weekend, but then insanity happened. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but we have a great show for you guys today. Some might call this the Shugyo wrap-up show. Some might call it an opportunity to talk with the Savage. Some might call it an opportunity to talk with the promoter of Shugyo as well. So we have a lot of show cram-packed for you guys, and yes, I will talk to you a little bit about my experiences at the World Jiu-Jitsu Festival, which was insane. You might have seen me on camera. I got several notes from people saying like, hey man, I didn't expect to see you there, and I was like, me neither. So anyway, we have a lot of show wrapped up for you guys, and it appears that our guest is ready to go. I want to go ahead and say this real quick. Before I pull this gentleman on air right now, I want to tell you a little bit about him. This gentleman who we're about to bring on in just a second is not only Savage Level 10th Planet, he's a Savage Level competitor. He is somebody who has been a friend of Verbal Taps for a long time. We have admired his work. We've seen him come and compete at just about every form of competition in jiu-jitsu imaginable, and I gotta tell you, it was quite nice. Spoilers, if you haven't seen it already, too late. Ladies and gentlemen, we bring you the inaugural winner of the Shugyo Invitational, one Nathan Orchard. Sir, how are you doing?
Rav, how's it going, man?
It's going very well, dude. You know, I have to tell you, man, I thought you had a good shot going into it. I didn't want to be told any of the results. I was beyond stoked when I saw that you won it. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, how did that come together? Obviously, you're a prime candidate for something like this. That's some cool ninja shit that people don't know about that's going to happen. But how did you get involved in this?
You know, it just so happens that I know the right people. You know, PHIL SCHWARTZ is one of my closest friends, and he's the one that put the whole thing on. And, you know, he was actually telling me about it first, and he was kind of mentioning some people he wanted to have in it, and I'm like, well, what about me? Like, I'm going to be in this, right? And he's like, dude, you want to be in? I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? This is like what I'm all about, you know? So, yeah, you know, I just, as soon as I heard about it, and that's the most epic rule set there is, I had to be a part of it for sure.
Was there ever a moment where he was saying it as if you weren't going to be involved?
I think maybe he thought I wouldn't be interested because it was the first of something. I don't know, you know, but yeah, I think he maybe just, you know, I've got a lot going right now, and it's a crazy time in my life, especially when it was going on. My wife was, you know, a month away from giving birth to my first child, and it was on Mother's Day, and so you know, but it's fine, you know. My wife is super cool. She understands, and she it's all good, man. It worked out beautifully.
I would say it does kind of come with the territory. If you're involved, you know, you probably know stuff like that will occasionally come up, but Mother's Day is a hard pull. Was this the first Mother's Day?
This is the first Mother's Day married, and she was pregnant, so it's kind of a lot against me, but like I said, she's pretty cool.
Well, obviously, but the issue is, what did you do to make up for it? Because, you know, I know when I'm gone on certain times with my wife, I usually have to go like, babe, there's ADCC this weekend. We're going to the spa in a week. It's going to be great. We're going to have a great dinner. We're going to do this. What was the kind of saving grace for you, if there was one?
Well, the possibility of winning the money, obviously. But now that I did win the money, we actually booked a trip to Hawaii. So that's kind of how it's a give and take.
I gotta tell you, I've never booked a trip to Hawaii to say I'm sorry to my wife. So I think you're doing just fine there. I want to ask this, dude, because what's really interesting about this particular tournament was they said sub only, no time limit. So many people wouldn't be up for that. So many people have certain rules that they want to go behind. You compete basically in every sort of rule set. How important to you was it to compete in that style, in that format, and especially with all of these young killers that they basically ascribe to this tournament?
Yeah, no, I mean, again, it is my pure. I don't really have a great style for points, and I feel like there's been times where my attack only style my submission only style has lost me championships. Combat Jiu-jitsu, EBI 2, I was in the finals, and there's been many times where I've lost narrowly by ride time or whatever else, and because I think I still haven't got it through my thick skull that sometimes you got to play the rule set and just ride out or whatever, and I'm trying to submit these guys. Well, so I lose or whatever else. But when it came to a no time limit term, there's no way I can be cheated, or not even to say cheated, but gamed. It's only can you submit me, because if you can't, now can I submit you? And then eventually it's got to give, So it was everything to me, man, because I wanted to know that in a way it makes me feel somewhat justified in some of my losses by referee's decision or points, because it's like, yeah, but my rule set, my truest expression is no time limit. That's just the way it is.
I gotta be honest with you, dude. So from my side of the world, I have a big thing about when I see athletes compete that I always think to myself, I can't do anything. It's not like I can get in there and fight for you guys. I wish well for a lot of you guys. And the thing for me is, because I'm pulled back, I want it to be the purest form possible. So I want it to be like, yo, you both go out there, you get your shot, and then whoever wins, wins. And a lot of the times it's like, you get those referees' decisions, or you get those real weird breaks where sometimes it's a point thing or some sort of advantage or something where you just go like, what the shit was that?
That's right.
And then I look at you guys and, I can't do anything. And half the time I'm like, the best I can do for you guys is sometimes give you an opportunity to voice your concerns. But in any time that I've seen you take second place or have a bad break, there's never been a moment where you've said, I don't want to talk to you, but I just feel it. And I know where it is. And I know, like, we're going to catch around. And for you, there was a pure sense of joy of being like, this man deserved that. This is his style. This is dope. No one can take it away from you. It literally, the results speak for themselves. So that's the best that I can wish for you guys. And it's why I'm happy that they were able to make this format happen.
Totally.
So let me ask this. What were you observing? Because this all happened in secret. We didn't find out about it until after the fact. So what were some of the observations that you had? Because we only got little slices of life. Like, we saw that you were out to lunch or dinner with Keith Krikorian, and you're kind of asking him questions, and we get these little snippets. So, like, day one, what was the experience like once everybody arrived and you got to see you were in the middle of it?
Yeah, totally. I mean, you show up to weigh in the day before, and it's just like, all right, all these super savage dudes. I keep pretty low key though, so I kind of got in, got the weigh-ins done, and then went and grabbed a quick bite with the homies, and just got to kind of talk to Keith and hear what he had to say and stuff. But for the most part, that was really all you did see me that previous night, because that's when that was shot. And then the next day, was like from the beginning of the tournament to the end, except for the finals was Sunday morning. But all Saturday, that took 6 hours from beginning to end, all 12 of the initial matches. And man, I'm telling you, that was one of the craziest experiences competing ever. It was so raw and just we're in this room and all the windows are blacked out and it's a hot day and it's just quiet, and you've never competed in a room like that. There's usually a crowd and all this stuff. There's just a film crew, and it was just like it felt like fights for fighters. You know, it wasn't like we were trying to make anyone happy there except for the fighters, the competitors. And it just felt the realest. It was like, hey, we all agree to show up at this time and all fight each other, regardless of who's there or whatever. It felt super pure, honestly, you know, like everyone's on the same. I actually had a similar experience to it years ago when I had a super fight with Gordon Ryan, right before he won the EBI Absolute. We agreed to a match. We said we'd be there at noon on this day. We both showed up. There was no rules meeting. I showed up 15 minutes before, warmed up. They said go at noon, and we fought. You know, it was just like issuing a challenge to another samurai, meeting him, and then doing it. You know, it just so happens that people could be there or not. But so Shugyo was just pure like that. You know, just showing up to see who is going to tap out everyone else, and that's it.
Did you, okay, and I don't necessarily need names or anything like this, but like, what did you sense from your fellow competitors? Because one of the things I know about being somebody who's quiet, like when I'm quiet, I'm trying to observe how to do an impression of somebody, and that's how I usually pick it up. A lot of comedians, like Eddie Murphy's famous for saying like, yo, I'm an extrovert, but like when I'm hanging with people, I chill and I observe and I watch everybody. So my question to you is as a fighter, what were some of the observations you made of the people that were also in this? Because if you're quiet, it doesn't mean you're just blind. And it is an unusual situation to be in.
Totally. You know, I saw a lot of confidence from some people, and I saw, well, like, what you know, I love talking with Keith. He's got one of the most, like, you know, best jiu-jitsu minds I've ever heard. And the way he breaks down matches and breaks down strategies and tactics, like that was really cool, you know, how cerebral he is with it, because I run a lot on feel, you know, and it was interesting to just see the personalities and to see it's like, oh, so these are the guys that showed up to do no time limit. Like it is a different type of competitor, you know what I mean? It's pretty gritty, but, honestly, everyone there, I had tons of respect for and stuff like that. So, yeah, I try not to pay too much attention to anything but what's going on in my own head. You know what I mean? Because I can't really. That's all just external, whatever stuff going on. I just try to keep it all in and, you know, not let anyone read my mind.
And you know, I gotta be honest, man. Keith is one of those guys who, if he wasn't such a badass competitor, I would pull him on the media side and I would have him as a correspondent because he has such a plethora of knowledge and he's curious. And I think that open-mindedness makes him so relatable and so genuinely genuinely certain to try and get an answer. Like even if he doesn't know the sensibility of it, he's describing as best he can. And I think we're watching him live time. So, you know, we had a joke, which was 2 years ago, we did an ADCC raffle, and so everybody got assigned an ADCC competitor, like a Pokemon, and if their guy won, they won a prize from one of our sponsors. Nice. And Keith was in charge of updating the brackets, and I was like, this is a thankless job, I don't know that anybody wants to do it. And Keith's like, oh, I'll do it, boy, it's cool, yeah. And I was like, oh, and lo and behold, the person who was doing our brackets 2 years later is in ADCC. So for us, I told people, I was like, whoever does this next job, we have 100% rate of sending them to ADCC. So I think you want to do this job.
Yeah, bro.
And it was funny because the person who ended up doing it was Michael John, who is watching right now. Hello, Michael. Thank you for sharing. We appreciate that. I want to get the feeling of what was your first reaction baseline when you saw your group, because they grouped them in different categories. So you had 8 competitors, in case you guys didn't watch. 8 competitors broken into 2 groups of 4. What were your thoughts on that format? And then what were your thoughts on your fellow entries in that 4-person bracket?
Yeah, I mean, I like the way they did it. Otherwise, if we went like round robin through the whole bracket, that'd be like 7 matches. And I mean, that's just almost overkill, you know? So I like how they broke it up and had the 2 champions of each side go together. That was good. And my guys, well, you know, honestly, man, like I had been wanting a match with Rafael Domingos for a long time. I've seen him compete a lot in the EBI and stuff, and he just always looked gritty, and I just always thought we'd have a really exciting match. So I was stoked on that. My first match of the day was Sean Weisenberg, who he's actually been on a pretty solid tear recently, and he's a good wrestler, and he's also up here in the Seattle area with me. So, you know, I mean, whatever, it was just a matter of time before we crossed paths and kind of handled it. And it was kind of cool that it got to be in a no time limit match like that. And then Jordan Holy, I actually kind of knew the least about him, and except for that he's just ripping people's legs off.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And that was about that, you know. But man, honestly, I've gone against all the best leg lockers. Like preparing for Eddie Cummings, preparing for Imanari, preparing for some of these guys I've gone against. It's just like I feel like my leg defense is I put a lot of time into it, so not a problem. You know, the other side of the bracket, you know, again, I didn't know very much about Max, just that he was like a big, strong, gritty wrestler, MMA guy. But obviously, Ethan, you know, I kind of thought it was going to be him and myself in the finals, but then there was that upset where Max put him out. That changed the whole game, dude. That really was a huge wrench in things in a cool way. You know what I mean? It made it more interesting, kind of. You know, I was more than anything hoping. You know, I never want to go against a friend. You know, so unfortunately, Keith didn't make it to the finals. But hey, I didn't have to fight a homie in the finals. You know. And then Josh Bacalao, you know, he's another local guy up here in Seattle. But he's kind of a homie too, you know, like that. So honestly, I thought it was beautiful, and it just worked for me stylistically as well. All the guys on my side, so you know, but they're all just such savages that they'd all been good matches. Just luck of the draw, essentially.
You touched on this briefly, and I'm curious because what was fun for I think a lot of people as they were watching this, kind of bit by bit, was there was a little bit of delay for us in terms of knowing what you guys already know. So as we were watching along, did you get messages from people as they were watching and going along? Because, you know, there's nothing more you can do. It's already filmed and you already know what happens. But all these people are just like, what, dude? They tell me, like, what happened, dude? Did you get notes like that as it was going along?
I had all kinds of stuff, man. And people were asking, and I just smiled and just said, man, it was a cool thing. You should watch it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, no, it was good. You'll enjoy it. Go check it out. You know what I mean? But no, it was cool how it was like this. You know, it was not only was the competition itself different, but then the way it was released. Like I didn't get to talk about it for weeks and weeks and months. You know, and then it slowly trickles out, and so everything about it was a totally different experience. But it was fun to get like that, like really slow release of gratification as opposed to like you win, you post. Yeah.
You had a very nice still photo that just kind of looked like this, and I would have been okay just interviewing that person, but you were saying there was a nice slow release of getting that adulation. I do want to ask this though, because you touched on it a little bit when you talked about maybe the surprises or the elements that maybe caught people a little off guard, but I'm curious, were you able to also watch as a fan when you weren't involved because of how dope some of the things were? Because all I could think of was, I was like, you know, everybody keeps thinking of themselves as a competitor in this scenario. But there were some cool things that did happen on that show that didn't even involve you.
Dude, I'll tell you, watching Josh and Keith go for 71 minutes, that in a really hot room, that was crazy, dude. Honestly, like on a human level, that was one of the craziest feats I've ever seen of just like sheer will, and those guys went hard for 71 minutes. I'm telling you, you could feel the intensity in the air, and everyone was watching it like, holy shit, is this happening right now? Like, look at these two guys go nonstop. Like, that blew my mind. You know, like, it's funny because Keith, I feel like he's kind of like, you know, he's bummed he didn't win or whatever else, but what I saw him go through, dude, that was some epic hero shit. And like, I told him what an inspiration he was to me after that. Like, as a fan, watching what those two guys did, I was just like blown away and walked away with nothing but the most respect for both of those guys. You know, it didn't matter who won that match. They both went out there and fought so hard for so long, man. That was incredible to see, for sure.
What was interesting to me is, you know, I watched that episode and I mean, like you, I know Keith fairly well, and it's one of those things where I know how the athlete will take it. You know, a loss feels like a rejection of your talent and your skill, when in actuality, it's feedback for that moment. It's not even feedback for you in general. It's just feedback for where you were at that time and place. And I think the best athletes can hear that feedback and go, but the hard part is sometimes you are stuck in that exact moment, and it's hard to break through that. And I've always said, I was like, you know, I don't think he can see what the rest of us can see yet, because he's so eyes on the prize. But that experience level points that he just went up there, you cannot replace that. And more importantly, the thing that caught me was 2 or 3 years ago, or maybe even just a year ago, Keith was mentioning to me, because, you know, we kick around no time limit, sub-only kind of things with myself and my friends. And I'm always like, yeah, you know, we should throw something like that together at some point. We should get some sponsors. You know, you put it on a list. And Keith was telling me, he's like, oh, man, I'd love to do one of those. I never get asked. And I was like, what? And then I see he's on this. And I was like, well, you got your wish, kid. And he's just like, well, just wait till you see it. I was like, all right. And I watch it and I go, you got what you wanted, man. You got an epic war that people are going to talk about. And now it lives in perpetuity because the whole match is up. So you can sit there and experience that whole match if you really want to, and live through every second of that like everybody else is available to them. What did you guys do during the 70 minutes, though? Did you guys go, like, eat? Did you, like, bake something? Did you crochet something? Because you had enough time to do a number of things.
I can't remember, but I think I was the next match. So I was just like, you know, I honestly just laid down and watched it, and it turned into an hour of laying down. You know what I mean? I was just chilling, but I was on call. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was ready to go. And I just kept, for a while I watched it, and then I was like, all right, I'm out. I'm like laid down, tried to close my eyes. And I kind of drift off for a while, and I wake back up, and they're still going, and I'm just like, holy shit, this is crazy.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm stoked that they both get that on their resumes now, and they're able to kind of go forward and talk about that. But of course, as a competitor, I'm sure you're watching it, and it does inform a little bit of what will happen next for you, because I'm sure you're sitting there going like, okay, they're both going to be a little spent from that, so that's intel, you know.
Yeah, now they're on the other side of the bracket, but I guarantee you their side of the bracket was like, yeah, you guys just keep burning up all that energy, you know. And which is what's so tough about submission only. It's like you can't game it, because you say, okay, do I go hard right away and try to get the fast tap? But then if it lasts for an hour, now I'm super tired. Or do I, you know, wait for a while, but then it turns into a really long match, and oh man, it's like, what do you do? You know, in style. And so, yeah, for me, it's just attack nonstop until it works out, you know. But yeah, epicness for sure, man.
Well, I mean, the good news is you can also get to a point where you yourself, having not lost, kind of know what your fate is. But then when they get to the reveal, and I have to say, you know, one of the best things that I did tell people was, my wife asked, she's like, what are you watching? And I go, basically, it's The Ultimate Fighter, but for grappling. And they did it in a weekend, and it's dope.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, okay. So, like, just having that hook to be able to tell somebody. And I go, well, they're doing the finals presentation now. And I go, so they're all sitting in a circle. Nate knows what's up. The other side is just sitting there going, like, how fast was I? And they're trying to do the math. So can you describe what that was like? Because we saw the snippet and we saw it released in that long break that you guys took for a hiatus, I think with respect to ADCC. But that means now you're waiting even longer for people to see these end results. But could you describe what it was like when they got around the circle to reveal who was advancing?
You know, I had an idea, but I still wasn't sure, I guess, you know. And so I knew it was either going to be between Max or Ethan, you know, and it all happened obviously much quicker for us, you know, but there was a minute where I'm watching all the matches like, okay, so what, this just happened to them and he's got this time, you know, and so we're all, again, trying to do that math in our own mind. We have no idea. And then, you know, to finally sit down and they let us know, it's like, okay, damn, me and Max, here we go, you know, let's do this. And then I got to sleep on it, you know, because the finals were the next morning.
Yeah.
And which is an interesting way to do it, because now you got to sit there and kind of like, again, the worst part of fighting is like the anxiety beforehand. The fight's the fun part. It's the waiting that sucks. So thought out a little bit longer, but you also get to go be fresh and go prepare for a possibly very long match. So no, I really like how it worked out, man. I really, I'm going to be excited to watch them do more for sure.
Can I ask this too? Because, I'm going to have Phil on after you.
Oh, cool.
So I wanted to, because the thing is like, the minute I hear about a new thing, I always, as just a gesture, I try to reach out to people. Sure. That doesn't mean like, hey, you have to come on here. It's just, listen, I don't know what you're up to, and it sounds new, and I saw this go up, and I reached out, and I had no idea who I was reaching out to. I should have put one and one together, and Phil's like, Raph, it's me, Phil. Yeah. And I was like, oh, right, sorry. I don't know, dude. Half the time it looks like I'm just talking to, like, Edward Snowden, so I don't know who the fuck I'm talking to sometimes. And he tells me this, and I'm like, well, let's bring you on, let's get you to talk about it. But just the element of this, the element of surprise, the fact that it was done in secret, the fact that no one talked about it, made it supremely epic and fun. Of course, we're now going to the finals, and you get that day of rest in between. I do just get a little curious, though. When you say it could go on forever, what was the experience like having those talking head segments? Because we don't really do that a ton in grappling. There's not like a check-in mentally wise to see from match to match. You're lucky if you do that sort of thing. Half the time it's me who does that. So I wasn't there, but I was stoked that they did talk to you guys. What was that like, talking right after each match?
It was fun. I mean, it was cool to kind of like build a story and not just like in the way that we just go out and compete. That's what's so cool about Shugyo is they like wanted to make a story out of characters, and make it more than just, here, look at these guys grapple. It's like, yeah, but who are these guys and how do they think and what do they feel about the upcoming match? And it just brought a slightly more human element to it, instead of just like, they're just a bunch of fighters, let them go do their thing,
Right.
And so it was fun to build the story and kind of help, that build up and to watch it unravel and break it down to myself. That was cool too, It was a really cool experience how they did that. Phil is just straight up brilliant. I love him, man. He's an innovator,
Did you feel, and I mean, this is maybe me speculating, but, you and Phil are obviously very close. You train a ton, he obviously looks up to you. When I first heard about this, though, it did feel like it carried a little bit of you, like just as a premise. And I mean that in the most complimentary ways. Like, I heard Shugyo, I heard the warrior aspect of it, and obviously, it's Phil is the backer and the guy who's been making it work with his team.
Yeah.
But can't help but notice, like if you weren't involved, you still would have a presence felt, I'm pretty sure there.
Yeah, I mean, Phil and I have definitely, heavily influenced each other's mentality of how we do martial arts and how we do life, So it's not just how we think of, again, martial arts, but it's, we try to just do really quality things all the way through, and again, the most quality, the most pure would be time limit submission only, right? So.
Fair. Let me ask this match. Walk us through it. Tell us, it was, I'm sure, relief that it was a short match, all things considered. But walk us through it, because I'm sure that wasn't exactly what you expected, especially with that day in between.
Yeah, I mean, we went out there and Max was, honestly, I was so in the right mentality that it didn't matter what my opponent did, or who my opponent was, or anything like that, And I feel like I have a pretty good sense, like I can sense what people are thinking or what they're trying to do, and I thought he just wanted to, at first bully me around and make me, think he was stronger than me, or he could out wrestle me, or fluster me, or something like that. But I just knew, always got to be able to weather that initial storm, And my style is to kind of like, if you notice, every single person got good position on me. Mm-hmm. But again, submission only, so it doesn't matter. I work, some of my deadliest positions are from bad positions, but that doesn't exist in submission only. So it creates a different type of game. So it's like, all right, make him think he's where he wants to be and pull something out. You know, it's just kind of the way I roll. You know, I kind of, you know, just like slither around and survive for a minute and make you think you're good, and then boom, I'm snapping something on from some weird angle that you just didn't really expect. That's how I've really been in so many of them. That's how Shugyo worked for me overall.
I mean, I gotta tell you, I was watching just your setup, and all I could think of was it was happening was the composure that you had for it, and that to me, like, you know, there's degrees of what's scary to me in jiu-jitsu, but nothing is scarier to me than somebody who's hyper composed as they're in weird positions, because I'm like, do they know more than I do right now? Because I think this is bad for me. You know, that's my first sign of like spidey sense danger. But I looked at that and I could tell, and I couldn't tell if it was the editing letting me do it or just the way it was breathing or your movement, but I was like, I think he's got this locked up, like, pretty quickly. And, you know, obviously, things as they may, you get the submission, you know, then describe to me this, because I really want to know. You know, part of the narrative that you described and that others have described is you come close, you come close, you come close. What did that release feel like, though, when it was there and you won and it was indisputable?
I got to tell you, man, it in a way, like, not that it's like taken something away from my competitive drive, but I'll tell you what, man, it's freed me up. It made me feel free because I did something. Look, it's not ADCC, it's not EBI, but it mentally preparing for a, you know, 4 possibly no time limit matches. That's one of the just craziest things I've ever done. And so, again, maybe not the most prestigious tournament, but in another way, it is the most prestigious to me and to my style and what I care about. So, again, it kind of made me feel like, hey, you know, now I've done what I actually care about. I won that one title that actually means, like, really so much to me. And so now I feel free in whatever else I do. Like, hey, it'd be great to win EBI. It'd be great to go to ADCC. But you know what, man? I have Shugyo, and I have that trophy. And to me, it's like, it is the most epic tournament to me. Again, maybe not to the greater jiu-jitsu community. Maybe they don't even know about it. But to me personally, man, it meant everything. And because, man, I've just been working so hard for so long, and I feel like I've fallen short so many times. So to finally not fall short, like, again, I just felt this crazy release, like, in my chest. And again, I don't want to make it sound like I'm a less hungry competitor now, because I'm still, like, I still have things planned and coming up, and I'm training my ass off right now. But I feel like I know myself better, and that's what matters to me more than anything. And so now I know how to go out and compete even better than I have before, man. It was just a release. It was free. That's the way I can describe it to you.
I can't help but ask. I was given some information by a certain producer. I won't reveal the name. But I was told that you might have a certain trophy. Do you have it near you? Because I would be interested to see what it looks like.
Hold on, it's this one, right? Hold on, let me grab it. I know my lighting isn't that great in this office, but...
Oh, look at that. That's so dope. Wow. Dude, that's money.
You know, and it goes well in my office. You know, I got all this, like, weird, crazy stuff, all this different art and all these, like, crazy things in here, you know? So it just, like, it sits perfectly.
You're showing the art, and I can't help but notice the samurai swords behind you. Yeah. So, you know, for me, I'm always like, I don't think a robber ever wants to try and come into your house for a number of reasons.
No, that would be a very, very bad on many levels.
Nate, you know, you mentioned something that I think is really important, which is the significance of what this means. And I think that there's something that is not lost upon me. You know, I work closely in television. I've had those experiences. And I think sometimes that's hard for our fans to understand is long-term effects. So what this show did well was tell stories about people with grappling as like an extra form of the storytelling.
Yeah.
But the fact that you'll be the first person in what seems like a series that they're planning to do to continue this going on means that now you've set a bar that the next person has to go to, or the next person after that. So that even if this series doesn't continue to go on, it made a good impression for other things to maybe follow in its suit. So
Yeah.
I don't think that's lost on you, but I think it's really important that the individuals understand that, like, when you're saying, like, yo, this is why it means so much to me, I understand that. And I think that it's pretty dope. Because when I saw it, I go, he deserved it. I'm happy for him. I know what it means. And I know that Phil's already working on season 2. So with that in mind, what is the best advice you have for individuals who would be looking to do or take part in season 2? Because now we got a lot of people who say they're about that life. And I got to tell you, man, just looking at how you guys looked after, that's a tall order. So what would be the best advice you would give to them?
Well, I mean, to get into it, I don't know. I can tell you a piece of advice to try to win it. And it's what I actually said it in the show. And it's the mentality I brought into it, was that the person that wins it is just going to be the one that's most mentally flexible, who's the most adaptable, who is ready to just kind of go with whatever happens, because anything can happen. You can have a bunch of short matches. You can have multiple long matches. And once you're fixated on short matches or long or whatever else, you just got to be open to all outcomes. So just be mentally flexible. And I know that, how do you do that? I don't know, but that's what I did, is I stayed mentally flexible, and just to never think that, again, it's hard to stay mentally flexible if you get taken down, you're down by 2 points, and now this guy's going to stall you out. You know what I mean? You kind of have to turn into this very rigid thing. But in Shugyo, there's no such thing as a bad position. There really, until someone's got a choke sunk under your chin, you're still in the game. You know what I mean? And so stay calm, and no matter, even look at Max. Max lost his first match, but he still made it to the finals. And that shows a level of mental flexibility. So, go out there and just be raw and be the most, psycho guy there that day.
Well, okay. I think that's the one that people are going to take away. They're going to be like, I don't know about this other stuff and the quiet and blah, 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 but I will be the best psycho that day. Nate, I got to tell you, man, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I got to ask, what's coming up next, my friend? What do you have planned in the pipeline that is up next for Nate Orchard?
Well, right now, some possible Polaris match coming up in, I can't say any names or anything yet, but November, Thanksgiving weekend. And then after that, man, I'm telling you, I'm going to be really making a run to go to ADCC. I want to win the trials, and so I'm going to be focusing a lot on getting that done, and then taking whatever else comes my way in between, but ADCC is the target.
Did watching it recently ignite something? Because when I ask people what's coming up next, it's pretty dope when I hear people already saying, like, ADCC is 2 years away. I'm ready now.
Yeah. No, I mean, dude, I watched a lot of, look, I was just putting together the list of people that have submitted me in competition since I've gotten my black belt. And it's not a very long list. It's actually really short. But some of the names are Gary Tonin, Gordon Ryan, Craig Jones. You know what I mean? I've had Lachlan Giles didn't tap me out. But look, as far as I can say, my peers are at ADCC winning medals. And these are guys that, are way bigger than me now or whatever else. But what I'm telling you is, man, I know that I am right there too. So in a way, not to say I don't have a sense of entitlement, but I feel like I deserve to be there. And so the only way you get what you deserve is just by proving it and taking it, So I'm just going to prove what the fuck is up, just like I did Shugyo, man. That's what's coming next for me. It's proving that I deserve to be at ADCC. And I'm up there with all those guys,
I got to be honest with you. I mean, that usually is your producer, I think, on the side in the background, probably yelling for you to get off in a second. But
Yeah.
I want to say this. The thing that's making me dope and mad or angry and all that sort of stuff is just being like, you know, ADCC can only take 16 at a time, and they try to make it with an international flair. So getting in is one of the hardest processes in the world. Oh. So, you know, sometimes different things come in and out. You 100% belong there. But you know what is interesting is the next step for Shugyo, for you, is it's all about going out and testing yourself against other samurais, other warriors. And I feel like even though this element of that show ended, the next journey is then watching your journey to ADCC. So really, if anything, you know, the character of Nathan Orchard is done on this season 1. Season 2 could be a very fun episode. Especially if you haven't seen the prequel years with you competing, sir. I just want to say congratulations. It was very important to me that we reached out to you and we got to do this interview because I know so many times, even at combat, you know, I looked at you and I was like, no, not right now. You know, I thought about it. I was just like, I could do it and I could ask you all the questions in the world, but it was like there was nothing that was uncertain to people. You went all the way to the end. You had a close loss, but nobody would sit there and be like, you got destroyed. So the narrative would just be you being like, I mean, I just didn't win today. And I saw a couple of my friends interviewing you, the good friends over at Free Admission, and I was just like, you know what? I have faith a lot of the times where I go, not today. I know I'm going to circle back to you soon. I don't know when, but I know soon. And lo and behold, next thing you know, you win this thing.
I'm glad we saved it for Shugyo, brother.
Absolutely, dude, because otherwise I would have been like, hey, you can't tell me if you won or not, but did you win? And then you'd be like, I can't tell you anything, you idiot. Yeah. What do you expect? So it means all the more to me that we got to celebrate it. And on season 2 premiere episode of this show. So it is very, very happy, man, for you.
Man,
Congrats.
It's an honor to be on the show, man. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Well, Nate, if people are looking to train with you, where should they be going, sir?
They can go to 10thplanetseattle.com and get whatever information they need. You can hit me up on Instagram, Nate Orch 10P. You know, I'm really not too hard to get a hold of, and we're up here in the Bellevue, Seattle area.
Well, sick, sir. Again, cannot thank you enough for your time here today. I want to tell all of you guys who are watching right now, you don't want to go anywhere. We have the executive producer of the Shugyo Invitational coming up next, a good friend of Nate, a good friend of mine, a good friend of yours for making this TV happen. We'll be right back after this commercial break. Okay, I'll do Sean Connery doing play-by-play.
Hey, what time does Sean Connery arrive at Wimbledon?
I don't know. What time?
10-ish.
You don't laugh at your own jokes like that, young
do.
man.
Well, of course, you see, Andre Galvao is doing his best to go ahead and pass Philippe Pena's guard. However, Philippe Pena is proving quite the minx, making sure that there is a little bit of a guard that protects him, much like I protected Catherine Zeta-Jones in the movie Entrapment. And the thing about this is, I like to go up to people, and I like to see when they only drill both sides, because I look at them and I say, you're drilling both sides.
It's a movie Entrapment. If you didn't see that movie, it doesn't make zero sense.
Specifics, or is Marvel vs. Capcom good?
I think I played this one when I was like 8. Me too.
Here's the thing.
Yes, sir.
I fought him very valiantly. He's got a lot of tenacity to him. The thing is, I've seen you fight in MMA, and I know you can bring the heat. What do you have to say to each other before you guys are going to fight?
This is where it all goes down.
This is where we end it.
This isn't where it all goes down. There's also a mat.
This might be where we started, but
okay.
This is
it's not carrying on a rivalry.
What do you have to say to him? I want you to look him dead in the eyes, and I want you to tell him what you would say to somebody if you were fighting him right now.
You're gonna die.
It's not very specific, but okay. Gentlemen, good luck.
All right.
See how this goes. Play a fair game.
Oh, wait. I think you pick. You got the first place. I think, one of those two, yeah. Or the one this one right here. Punches, kicks, jumps, I forget, dude. I was just hitting somebody.
Yeah, why didn't you tell me half of this shit?
I was on the fly. All right,
here we go.
I'm gonna keep the same loadout, I think. Start with Mega Man.
Wolverine and Gambit.
Oh,
Nice, straight X-Men.
Gambit's a good.
X-Men.
Okay.
I haven't played this
It's
game
all
in a
good.
very
Yeah,
long time.
it's an equal punches chance right now.
Okay, equal punches.
Equals punches chance.
Okay. Alright, here we go. Off to a very good start. Wolverine already get the first hit in here. Mega Man, though, coming in with that giant bionic arm. Beautiful play over this way. Yeah, of course. I mean, you got the world-class...
How the hell do you do your ultimate? I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out too.
He's not going to make it to Mega Man 9 if this keeps up, dude. Bionic cannon.
Oh, I got it!
Close. He's getting close here. Curtain's making here. Maybe a good time to change.
Oh no! I don't know how to change.
Oh! Ask him.
How do you
I
change?
don't know either.
Oh, you got it! No!
All right. I don't know how to change either. I don't know how to change.
That was cheap. Quick Gambit.
Oh, okay.
Get out of here.
It's fair. Get out of here.
War Machine's coming in. He was very detrimental with War Machine. However, I kicked War Machine's ass, so he got a lot coming in.
Now, he knows how to do.
Like combos and shit?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just smacking
You
him.
gotta work with tenacity. That's your thing, man. Do that rope-a-dope. Let him beat you up so that he thinks that he has the better of you until you... Oh! I like that.
I figured it out! Oh, shit!
Oh, shit, dude. You want to keep away from it. It's very close. It's neck to neck right now. It's about who wants it more. That's what this is coming down to.
Dude, this is gonna be where
Oh, man.
you're gonna make and break friendships all night tonight.
That's what I'm hoping for. Undefeated champ right now. Are you worried about your match? How many matches do you have before
We gotta
you
have a
go?
rematch.
Yeah, dude. We got a rematch coming hot. I feel good. Oh, I feel so good.
How about we get you back on out there?
Yeah.
We're gonna get you a challenger in a bit, but I want you to get ready for your match. Find you
Find
someone.
me somebody. Find me somebody. We have.
Don't talk to the camera.
We
You
have.
heard that. Don't.
We have all the video evidence.
We do.
Where's Boogie?
Boogie's running the tournament.
I'm the unspoken champ. Boogie.
Did you just say unspoken champion? All right, guys, keep it locked here. We'll be right back.
That was good.
I like that K-Flow gets a chance to interview people that he's somewhat familiar with, as you already said, looking like one of the Outsiders extras. He looks good.
Kev, I've always wondered this, though. If they were looking for somebody who vaguely knows individuals who has great hair, why wouldn't they have you interview people? They only hate me. I don't think they even know you exist, so we should really just be pitching you at this point.
And I'm so charming. I'll really get those fighters. I mean, I could have probably gotten 3 more sentences out of Gordon.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I've got great news for you right now, as you are seeing over on this side of the screen. Our good friend Phil Schwartz, the executive producer of Shugyo Invitational, has returned. Phil, is this coming back to do a victory lap here? Do you get the good sense that you accomplished something fun, because the rest of us really loved watching this?
I'm glad, man. It makes me really happy that we were received the way that people seem to be responding to Shugyo. I've heard a lot of things. I think my favorite comment was someone said if they had to start describing Shugyo, that the sentence would start with favorite or best ever. I thought that was kind of a good sentiment. But yeah, man. I mean, I think that I hope that what people felt all the way around was that Shugyo is a production for grapplers and by grapplers. I mean, it's for everyone, but we wanted to show the athlete stories because we know the athlete stories and we've lived the athlete stories. And so, whether you're watching really high level people winning and losing and putting it on the line in the highest tournaments and the highest stakes, or you're just, a blue belt journeyman who's out there, competing in your local Naga, we know winning and we know losing. And so these are our stories, and I think that people can connect to that,
When I talked to you last, you couldn't tell me anything.
Nope.
So we were in an element of secrecy. So you knew things that I had to experience, much like the rest of the audience. What were you most anxious for people to see? Like, what were you most like, damn, I wish I could talk about that. I wish people could see that.
I mean, man, okay, so here's the thing. So you have a background in television. I don't have a background in television. I have a background in watching television. I'm a fan of watching, but I don't know how to make TV. So a lot of this was learning, imitating, replicating on the fly. Something that I guess I knew intuitively, but you go into a production like this, you have the idea of what you think's going to happen, you have your cameras, and then you say go, and everything just starts moving, and we start capturing, and you really have no control past that point. The guys, they perform how they're going to perform, the equipment performs how it's going to perform, and everyone catches what happens, and so then you get through. And it took us months. It took us a long time just to sift through all of the, we had a lot of times we had 6 or 8 different cameras rolling not all in the same room, all at the same time. So, when you think about how many hours of tape we had, is a lot of story to get through. But what was buried in there was like some real gems, And so, of course, Ethan going unconscious is a huge upset. No one could have expected that was going to happen. That was I was afraid that was like the thing that was going to drop and that was going to leak, Like if anything was going to leak, I was like, oh man, it's probably going to be the fact that Ethan, who like on paper is the guy to win the tournament. Like he's probably has the best resume on paper. And he gets choked out. And now we can talk about this later, but just losing one match doesn't mean you're going to lose the tournament, but just the speed and the finality of that match was just really intense. So obviously that was a big moment. Keith's on and off camera, post-competition mindset, obviously a lot of emotion there. I'd love to talk more about that. Nathan finally achieving, what he's set out to achieve so many times.
I want to stop you right here just for that, because obviously we just had Nate on, and obviously you're close to him. In so many different elements, people would be like, rigged, you know what I mean? But like here, you're just like, what did I rig? There was no points, there's nothing. You just provided the forum for which they could go compete. It just so happened that somebody that you're really close to won, and I'm sure that feels great. But I think it feels great in another sense where, I put things together, and I've been to the point where I say, I'm not in charge. I facilitated it. Now it's up to the other people to do their thing and show up and be who they are. And that's really what, at your core, you really want. For you, though, how dope was it that it was Nate?
Yeah, I mean, it felt amazing. I love Nate's a really good friend of mine, a teacher of mine, a friend, a partner. For the last 5 years, he and I ran 10th Planet Portland together. We started it together way back, in 2013. And then, he recently got married and moved up to Seattle. And now he's running 10th Planet Seattle and I'm running Portland. And so obviously we have a lot of history. And like you said, someone would be like, oh, it's rigged or whatever. But actually the bracketing was all random. It was all randomly drawn. And if you look at it on paper, actually, there's more black belts in Nathan's division than there is in the other side of the bracket, Yeah. So, I mean, who's just, whoever's scale you want to use. But at the end of the day, Nathan performed as he performed. And, we saw some really interesting matches. I really was so pleased with how the format went and how all these guys went out there and competed. And I think that, I hope that we proved something about what submission only, no time limit can be like, because we did have some longer matches, but we also had a lot of matches that were under 10 minutes. It just shows you that when we really strip away this jiu-jitsu back to the pure jiu-jitsu, real jiu-jitsu happens. Like, we don't lose the real jiu-jitsu. In fact, we get it. We get it back. So I thought that was a really good indication. Of course you can have a 71-minute match or a 25-minute match, and that may still not play with a live audience, but at the end of the day, a lot of these matches were, 5 to 8 minutes long, which is our typical jiu-jitsu match.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
so I think that the rule set didn't really didn't constrain us in that way.
Let's talk about the production stuff, because let me tell you something. I looked at these cameras. They did not look cheap. So there's definitely an element of, you guys wanted to elevate what it looked like. And I commend you for that. I know it's tough. I know it's one of those things that can drag down a show just in terms of the constraints it puts on a budget. Just tell me a little bit about what it was that you learned, because for somebody who, and you're very nice to mention that you haven't produced TV, but like now you have. So now you're producing some form of entertainment and you've got a product out there. This is your world. What were some of the things that you learned as you were doing it?
Yeah. First thing and foremost, I have to give a huge shout out to my partner in this first season of Shugyo. Bam Lionheart was my director and my technology expert, and he was also really putting in a ton of work with me along the way, figuring all this out. One of the first things that I realized is that my insurance was not high enough to cover all of the equipment we were going to have in house, and I had to bump my entire insurance premium because of how basically the equipment rental place was not satisfied with our liability and coverage for rented equipment. So we had to bump up our entire policy just to have $30,000 worth of equipment in the building for 3 days. That was the first thing I learned. Man, this studio stuff is expensive. Expensive. And I think I can tell this story, but all this I guess what it means when you're the producer is that it means that it all goes on your credit card, So when you're talking about something and when you're envisioning it, it all seems real simple. It all seems real smooth. And then when there's three, many thousands of dollars cameras and lights and all these setups standing around, and there's people moving and pushing and doing all this stuff, and you're like, holy shit, I hope that camera doesn't get knocked over because we can't afford for that camera to like the production budget is not in the black, you know what I mean? So we can't have cameras getting knocked over, we can't have lights getting knocked over. Everything kind of had to come together, and we even had to kind of go back and forth with these guys because one of the cameras we returned, they tried to tell us that one of the memory card slots was broken or something like that.
Oh no.
And I said, well, we used it all weekend to record all the video, and we had a card in there all weekend, so I don't think it was broken, right? So we kind of even had to go a little bit back and forth with that, but it's a lot of more moving pieces than you could ever imagine goes into something like this, both on the pre-production, on the production side, and on the post-production side. So eternally grateful to all of our teammates, everybody that stepped in and put a hand in, because it wasn't just me. It wasn't me running around with the camera, and obviously it doesn't look like that either because like shit. So yeah, man, production, it was fun. It was a fun challenge. I enjoyed it. But yeah, it was stressful, and yeah, another thing that's part of production, that's part of the human element of this was, there were guys that we had invited who dropped out. We had 8 competitors confirmed, and 3 of the 8 competitors dropped out because of injuries, life, other things going on. We had Kim Terra, he was going to be in. We had Mike Davila, he was going to be in. And we had Adam Benayoun from Ryan Hall's academy. He was going to be in too. And so, and the reason why is because I basically, when I was thinking, okay, we'll only have 8 slots, so I just tried to talk to the 8 highest level, academies I could find and say, well, we want one guy, representing each clan basically. So that was why I was trying to spread it out a little bit. But, then we had guys come in, Jordan Holy was a late replacement, and and he's incredible, and he comes in and he blew me away. He went and got the fastest submission in the tournament, and then went and beat his own time and got a faster submission, and there's nothing about and that was the other thing that was surprising with the Ethan match, but there's nothing about the no time limit format that says you have to go out there and tap a person in 30 seconds, So I would expect people to come in and, kind of feel it out for a few minutes and maybe, no, not Jordan Holy. He got out there and just went ham on people, and he tried to have the same strategy with Nathan too in his match with Nathan. He was respectful, but he wasn't slowing down at all with his attacks.
What's also good is it's better to know in retrospect, but I saw Jordan pushing this show a lot. Like he was promoting it, he was getting it out there, and what's funny is like watching everybody plug in their own way. Because one of the things I did was I was looking to see like, well, who's plugging it, and sometimes the way that people plug it makes it seem like, did they do better than we think they did, or how are they doing this? Jordan didn't win, but he was plugging it like he did. And I think that was maybe the most admirable thing, because sometimes if you don't win, you could literally be like, well, fuck it. I don't care. I don't want to plug it because I didn't win. So what's the point? You'll see it when you see it. But like, in order for this to exist, the athletes have to be just as active after the fact, and there's no resting. Like you compete and then it's held in secret to produce. And then once it goes out, you need them to cooperate, because why else bring them on? So I was very happy to see him like plugging it, and then even after his storyline's done, he was still plugging it and saying like, "Yo, tune in." So big props to Jordan for that. I think that's one of the most admirable things that you can ask for an athlete, especially when an athlete was a last-minute replacement, but sure didn't look like it in the broadcast.
No, and he Jordan was very like forward when I called him up, because he basically said, I'm ready to fight anyone, anytime. He has that mentality. And so he didn't even ask. Like a lot of people I talked to, because I called guys from a lot of big gyms. I don't want to name names or anything, but, I think you were saying this maybe a little bit earlier with Nate, but a lot of people really only train for one style of jiu-jitsu, and they make their bread and butter in that one style, whether it's IBJJF gi, IBJJF no gi, Naga, ADCC no gi, whatever their EBI, obviously, whatever their style is, they kind of make their play in that area, and they don't really want to go out of their comfort zone. They're not that driven, unless the money is really big, they're not that driven to get out of their comfort zone. So a lot of people, I said, hey, who's the best guy from this association, or who's the best guy we can get from Gracie Baja or Atos or Marcelo Garcia, Henzo Gracie, 10th Planet, and so a lot of guys kind of had questions like, oh, what's the rules going to be? What's the rules going to be if this happens? What's the rules going to be if that happens? And Jordan Holy had no questions. Jordan Holy just said, yeah, I get it. I go there and I fight the guy, and when he taps, it's over. Like, I get it. Let's go. He didn't want to know who's in his bracket. He didn't want to know who's in the tournament. He just said, just tell me when to show up, and I'm going to show up and do it. And I was like, man, that's the best attitude of any of the competitors coming in. I love that.
Agree. Let's talk a little bit about the 70-minute war that we saw go on, because I gotta tell you something, man. As a producer myself, I see something go on that long. I've joked with people, and I've run submission only as well, but I told them in rules meetings where I've said, listen, if you guys don't get this done in 30 minutes, I'm throwing a wrench in there and then just letting nature take its course. So let's make with the move. What are you thinking when that's going on? Because I'm sure part of you is like, this is dope as a fan. Like, oh, this is a testament to their wills and their strength and their jiu-jitsu. And then the producer side, I'm pretty sure, is going like, I have to cut this.
Yeah, and I have to cut 3 different cameras for it. Not one cut.
Yep.
3 cuts. Yeah, man. I mean, okay. First of all, huge epic shout out to those athletes, Josh Bacalao and Keith. Just incredible. I mean, most humans cannot do what they did. And a lot of times, I thought this a lot while watching ADCC. Last weekend was like, man, you watch these guys move, and then like you know how tough a guy is, and then you watch JT Torres just manhandle him, and you're like, Jesus, how tough is like, you know what I mean? You're like, I don't think you should be able to manhandle this guy like that, and then he does, and then you're just like, what the hell? I think that in that match, like, a lot of people might look at that match and be like, yeah, I could roll for an hour or whatever. It's like, dude, you don't know the pace that these guys were getting out after it. Like, the pace that these guys kept, for how long they kept it for. And we actually, I had a little technical difficulty with the upload on that match, so I'm still actually I'm working to get that onto YouTube right now, a full unedited match. But when people are able, in the next week or so, you should be able to see the full unedited 71-minute version of that match. And man, it's no joke. It's pretty exciting from start to finish. So I'm not I wasn't that upset as a producer, as a fan. I was blown away. I was looking at my clock. I was looking at my watch because I had a stopwatch. And I was like, the stopwatch was going, okay, 10 minutes in, 25 minutes in, okay, 35 minutes in. Holy shit, people are looking at each other like, dude, they've been fighting for 45 minutes, And then we finally stopped them at 1 hour and just toweled everybody off because it was slip inside at that point. I mean, it was getting ridiculous. And I think that's a fair rule to just towel them off after 1 hour. It wasn't a big break. It wasn't a long break, but yeah, I mean, and then that precipitated the end. And I think that, like, so much of the story of Shugyo comes down to mindset and mentality, And we saw that in so many matches. We saw that in this match. We saw that in the finals match. Just the mindset and the mentality that the athletes are going into the tournament with. How do they feel about themselves? How do they feel about their opponent? How do they feel about no time limit? How do they feel about their cardio? And all of those demons are coming out on the mat. That's why, the main tag of Shugyo is face your demons, It's like, it's not being clever. It's like, look, no time limit match. Like, it's not a match against your opponent. It's a match against yourself, And that's what Nathan is so good at, is getting out of his own way, and not questioning himself and not questioning his actions and his movements, And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, But ultimately, that's kind of when you hear Josh and Keith tell the story of that match, it comes down to focus, and for a moment, if you lose focus and the other guys, right away is paying attention, you lose. And I can actually tell you a story about that myself. I was in a competition. I was in the finals, and I was in a nasty leg lock battle with a grappler named Keith Krikorian, and we're in the finals, and man, we're going back and forth. We're in 50-50, and things are going back and forth. And so someone on the outside says, 1 minute till overtime. And I thought, and my brain went, overtime. Damn, Keith's really good there. I don't think I really want to go to overtime. And then he got me in a heel hook. So it was like that was such a lesson in my competitive life. Was like, man, you can't lose. You cannot get pulled out of the present moment of focus for even 1 second. It doesn't matter if there's 30 seconds left. Like Keith didn't have the idea of, like, there's only 1 minute left, I'm going to coast this guy out and win in overtime. As soon as I got distracted with the idea of overtime, he won. He won right there. And so, something similar happened to Josh, and we also have to talk about Josh because, no one, including Josh, knew at the time of Shugyo, but after the fact, Josh just recently got diagnosed with a rare form of bladder cancer, and he actually already had surgery to remove part of his bladder, and he's recovering now, and he's expected to make a recovery. But right now we're raising some money on a GoFundMe to support Josh. But to think about Josh's matches and how hard Josh fought with the certainty that he had cancer at that moment, like, one of the competitors, he was in that 71-minute match and he had cancer and he didn't know it. And that's like, even crazier, to think about the limits of the human body and how much of a savage, how much savages these guys are, who put themselves through this, So, Josh is fighting that battle now, and he's going to win. And we're wishing him a speedy recovery. And if you have, if you can donate a little bit of money, go find that GoFundMe. We can say.
If you guys haven't seen this yet, please go ahead and do what you can. I mean, obviously, it's one of those things that you hate to see for any individual, but it was one that I saw go up, and my first thoughts immediately were just like, because I did what you're saying, which was you start to do the math and you go, it's not like you weren't experiencing that. You may not just know it yet. And to then put that into context on the larger scene of like, oh shit, fuck, dude? I'm down when there's a cold. What the hell would I have done in that situation? So obviously, if you guys have the ability, please go ahead and help out that way. I mean, Josh was a game individual. He put together a great match as well with Keith. I mean, it takes two for that. So that was so much fun to watch. And I'm so glad that, he got to get an extra element of support through this as well. So I think that's one of the extra benefits of a show like this. I would ask though, where the hell did his singlet come from? Because I was thinking about this and I was like, I know to expect a lot of things, but I was like, normally when they say, Raph, what do you got packed? I'm like, well, we've got my rash guards, my gi. I thought especially for a competition like this, I was just like, where the hell did that singlet come from?
Yeah, I didn't know that I had no idea he was going to bring that out. He talks about it in his interview, kind of like his, how he sees himself as a wrestler and his wrestling game and his wrestling pedigree. And I think that, he wanted that kind of match with Max. He was setting up, he wanted that wrestling match. And, he scored some takedowns and he had some really good positions. And Max is obviously very game, incredibly game opponent. But yeah, I thought that was really awesome. And we actually, our original plan was to have everybody wear matching Shugyo rash guards, kind of like, get everybody the same rash guard. And that would have been cool, but I loved the spice and the flair of it,
Yeah, I've thought about that a couple times where I've been like, I think there was one branding opportunity where I was like, man, if I host a tournament, I'm going to make everybody wear like my sponsor's brand. And then I was like, wait, that may not be their sponsor. Right. So that might be less money for them to do their thing. But I was like, one day maybe. But like, we're talking like network money if I've got that. That way you could at least replace it for the athletes as opposed to being like the UFC and being like, you wear Reebok now, kid, or else you get on out of here.
That's my goal, man. I want Shugyo to end up on Netflix, man. I want Shugyo to end up on Amazon. I think that, again, I think these are human stories. I think that that's the direction that we should be going with the storytelling, and the production and the mentality. I think Fight Pass is great. I think Flow Grappling is great. They're getting a lot of content out to a lot of people, but I would like to go even more mainstream in terms of who we can reach and who we can share this with. And I've had a lot of people say, hey, my wife doesn't know anything about grappling, but she watches this with me, or my kids. We have people that are, watching it with their kids, watching it with their family, sharing it with a lot of people in their lives who aren't necessarily the biggest grappling fans, but like I think it was you or Nathan said, like the idea of the Ultimate Fighter, and I was a fan of The Ultimate Fighter before I ever did jiu-jitsu. I was a fan of The Ultimate Fighter before I ever had an MMA fight, And so that medium helped bring me into the sport, loving watching it, and some of it's cheesy, and you know what I mean? And that's cool, like it, if you can imagine if we did some wacky ass shit like The Ultimate Fighter does, but we're not trying to be a wacky show. Like we're trying to be pretty like serious with it. And like it has a little bit of a serious tone, but man, that being able to hear those stories and to see those guys, especially the guys like I think this is true for Shugyo and also for other programs like that. Like sometimes a character that doesn't win becomes a more interesting character, Mm-hmm. And Rafael Domingos, he didn't win any of his matches, and he was a late replacement. He was coming in real late, but he didn't win any of his matches. But he was awesome, and everyone loved his style, and everyone loved his mentality, and everyone loved hearing his story. And I know that was a story that no one had ever asked before, and no one had really ever cared about before. And it matters, you know. It's real where these guys come from. And Max tells his story, and he's like, hey, look, I grew up in a small town where everyone was going to be in the small town and do small town shit, and I knew I was never going to be that guy, and like I had to get out, and I fought my way out. Like I used fighting to get out. And Hoffa was like, I started for food, like for free food, and like everyone has, everybody has their story, whether it's family, whether it's love, whatever it is, that brought them into the sport. And it's like, man, that to me is so meaningful. I love that.
No, that was amazing. And again, Domingos has been on EBI before, but you didn't really get time to get to know that per se. You get snippets or you get the behind the scenes sort of thing for a very brief amount of time, but in very little time do you get like actual focus on just the one dude before you see the main fight. So I thought that was pretty dope. And I know him personally. He's a very nice guy. And I'm a fan of his salsa. Like that clip between him and Nate talking was just, it's dope. It's what you aspire to see for grappling, where you see like guys exchange after having a good clash and good sportsmanship on that side. So I was very excited about that. You mentioned you wanted to talk a little bit about Keith, just in terms of the emotion that was spared afterwards. What specifically insight did you have on that you wanted to share with us?
Oh man, I mean, Keith, I have so much respect for Keith. I mean, as a competitor, as just a new person on the scene, I mean, I think it's really easy to forget how young Keith is, and he's been doing this for a really long time. I mean, he's been in the fight world. He started jiu-jitsu, he's done wrestling, he's done boxing, he's done MMA. So he has a lot of experience. But losing is hard. It's never easy. It's never easy to lose,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it was really interesting to watch different people's processes for how they lost, and something that I've seen in a lot of high-level competitors. I don't know I'll see if you agree with me here, but I've noticed in a lot of high-level competitors, they hate the feeling of losing more than they like the feeling of winning. It's like the drive to win is not always as great as the drive to not lose, And so they go so hard on themselves. And this is something that I was saying, to someone the other day is you don't really understand when you watch. I mean, it's a little bit like watching the Olympics again, and you're watching the Olympics and only one person's going to get a gold medal, but there's 400 athletes out there trying to get that gold medal, whatever it is. And those guys, like those athletes, you watch their one performance and you're like, you judge them and you say, hey, that guy he wasn't good enough. He didn't try hard enough. He must not have worked hard enough in prep. It's like these guys are doing 3 a days, 4 a days, in prep for their level of competition. And so what we're witnessing, in Shugyo and beyond, is we're witnessing guys at the very, 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 very top, And so, if Keith loses a match, and Keith beat Max, and Keith beat Josh, and if Keith had beat Ethan, it would have been Keith and Orchard in the finals, And I just have so much love and respect for Keith, and I think that he's going to go some really great places in the sport as soon as he gets a little bit more comfortable with the process, and I think that he's going there, and I think that he's only going to get better with age,
Yeah, this is interesting in the sense that I always try to make sure the athletes know where I'm coming from on this, which is, I go up to them and I have a certain way that I address them, win or lose. And when I talk to somebody who didn't necessarily win, it's not coddling. It's just literally telling them, like, you need to figure out how to work with this. You can't change the result. This is the result. Once you learn how to harness that, then you're destined for something bigger. And sometimes they know that, but they can't hear it for themselves. And so for me, it's difficult because I'll literally go up to them and I'm seeing it from an outsider's perspective. And I go, I don't want to take away what got you to here, but I'm letting you know this is what it seems like to other people who may be watching you or that you may not know for yourself. And you can make whatever decision you want after that. But for Keith, it's like all of us see the untapped potential of what comes in the future. And it's very hard for him to see it. But it's so interesting because he can see it for other people. And so that's why for me, I'm like, no, he's very aware of other people and their potential and all that sort of stuff. So I recently told him this. I was like, you know, it's really funny, Keith. You won't know what I'm telling you until you have to do this to somebody. And then when you do this to somebody and you have to explain it to them, you will have better perspective as to where you were. But you may not know it yet. And he's just kind of like, yeah, whatever, you know, and it's like, I don't want to take you out of this, but tomorrow you're going to go beat up somebody and then you're going to like start to get it back and you'll get your mojo back. And the best part is people love an underdog story. So all you did was remind us that we get to watch the next journey for whatever you take. So I was very pleased with that. You know, obviously I don't like seeing people be so destroyed after something, especially on a camera. You know, and it's funny because, like, I was just talking with Nate. I was like, Nate, I could have easily gone up to you and been like, after combat, and be like, give me an interview. And you do it because you're my friend. But what would that do? You know, like, I saw him doing an interview, and I saw him answering questions like this, where it's like, yep, this feels great. And I'm like, that's not a real interview. I know who you are. I know what you're about. So, obviously, there are times to do it if I felt like the situation merited it. But it was a win by overtime. So, you know, on that respect, I'm going to interview Cody and I'm going to pay respect to him and I'll catch up with Nate. And obviously I waited for the right amount of time because him winning this is a little bit better, just in the sense of talking with him. But let's chat about this. Okay, so you have all those emotional moments. You have great talking heads with people. You have a lot of things that come up. When I mentioned the production, the one thing I didn't get to talk about was it seemed like you guys were editing up to the minute as it was going on. So how was that going? It looked like you had a pre-edit and then it looked like you were kind of like shaving it down, because I was glad they got to about 20-minute episodes. That's a good sweet spot. 22 minutes for a half-hour show is where you want to be. What was that happening like? And can you tell me a little bit about that? Because there was a day where you like go, catch it Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday. It's going up now. Shut up, everybody.
For sure. Well, first of all, again, in terms of pre-production, it was pretty much just me. In terms of the actual weekend, we had a good crew of 12 to 14 people. But then in terms of post-production, again, it was just me and my partner Bam. So we didn't have a lot of support, and we weren't necessarily the most experienced with the Adobe Suite as we are now. And so there was a lot of learning curves, a lot of crashes, a lot of data lost, all that good stuff. But have you seen the South Park documentary, 6 Days to Air? Are you familiar with that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what we knew that once we dropped episode 1, we were basically like starting the clock on ourselves, And I kind of have joked about this in the past, but Shugyo was filmed in May. I was working on it all April, and it just finished now, and we're at the end of September. So if you say April, May, June, July, August, September, 6 months of work, and in a way, this was our own little Shugyo, like this was our endurance test, in terms of making this thing and just having to do it every week, every day, every free second was put into Shugyo. So there were days where, it was always our goal to get an episode out on a Monday, but a lot of times we would get to Monday and we would look at what we had and we would say, like, we're just not happy with it yet, and we're never going to put out something that we're not happy with, and we hope that the fans understand that. And, I had people sending me messages on all social media platforms saying, like, hey, you got me waiting out here like a heroin addict. Like, why am I checking you every 20 minutes? Like, just tell me when it's going to be up. Just tell me when it's going to be up. You know, it felt like that a little bit of the time, but yeah, it was just a 2-man crew. And we refused to put out anything that was subpar, you know. We had some issues with audio. We had some issues with lighting that we learned some good lessons with. And so, you know, we did the best we could in terms of post-production to clean some of that stuff up. But you can't please everybody, you know. I talked to people who, you know, said, I love the show. I said, yeah, the show's great. I want to make this stuff better. They're like, don't change anything. It's just perfect, you know. And so, you know, some people were very pleased. Other people, you know, see room for improvement. So I'm a look on the bright side type of person. So all I see is that the Shugyo season 2 is going to be even better. So even better audio, better cameras, better lighting. Everything will be better in season 2. So I'm excited about that from a production standpoint. But I also know so many things more than I did then. You know, and so the way that the episodes get built, there's layers to the episode, you know, and so there's the raw video layers of just choosing what story points come in. There's the edits of the fights, you know, there's the edits of the interviews. When I started editing the interviews, you know, the interviews are all way too long, and so you have to get them down into just the best content. And that's actually something that I'm looking forward to, is that I have so much content that's never been released that I'm looking forward to in the future, just producing little mini docs on each guy, on each athlete. I could do a little 10-minute mini doc on each guy, just with unreleased content, you know, that hasn't come out yet.
Well, it was very funny because you very generously, after we talked, sent me a link to like the very first episode, and you know, you were like, oh man, I welcome any notes. And I like went through and I had notes, and then I looked at it and I go, this is all stuff that's already happened.
Yeah.
Like, what can we do? You know, when you do a production, I don't know that people know this, sometimes you just have the footage that you have. Sometimes it's raw, sometimes it's there and you just go like, great, that's gonna work. And then sometimes it needs a little sweetening. And so my notes were like, you could sweeten this, but I knew the clock that you were going on. And I said, you know what? Here's the most important thing you need to know. The meat and the potatoes are there. You have exactly what you need. You're going to learn as you go. And I was like, there's no note I'm going to give you right now that's going to rescue this, because it's already there. You just know that that's going to be the thing that you do the next season. So I obviously have tons of things that I can throw your way, because I'm a person that watches something and goes, yes, this can be better. Yes, you can do this, but never change the elements of, like, you know, that format was good. The people were hype. I think that you know the elements that work and really harness those things. But you mentioned a season 2. So I'm going to ask this. How many notes have you gotten from people who now, and maybe they weren't in on the before, but maybe they're in now, but how many people have you gotten since there who's like, yo, when's this next one happening and how do I get in on this? Because I bet that 8-person bracket got a little easier to fill for this next season.
Yeah, man. So I that's like half of the traffic is when is the next season and how do I get in on it? And then the other half is how do I get Shugyo gear, which we can talk about later. But so in terms of next season, I've definitely played with a lot of ideas, and you know, again, like for me, I think you've commented on this in the past, but for me, secrecy is so important, and the surprise element is so important. So you know, don't expect to know too much about what season 2 is going to look like, when it's going to drop, who's going to be on it, who's not going to be on it, what the weight class is going to be. Is there going to be a weight class? Don't expect too many details before we really start dropping it. But you know, I can tell you that it's definitely gotten a lot easier to fill. A lot of people have hit us up, and the thing I can tell you is this: like Shugyo, right now, we want it to. I think there's a little bit of a false mentality that people think they see something and they equivocate everything across the board. Like Shugyo is not EBI. Shugyo is not ADCC. You know what I mean? Like we don't have a guarantee of a season 2. You know, I am working to fundraise season 2. You know, if you own a company and you want to sponsor Shugyo, contact me, right? But there's no guarantees. You know, we don't have a 5-season Netflix deal yet, you know? And so I think a lot of people see it and they're like, cool, I'm used to NBC or I'm used to Disney and I'm used to like, I get my next season every 8 months. Like I'm going to get something like this, you know, when's the next season of this Netflix show come out? I want to binge watch it. And Shugyo is just not there yet, you know? So right now it's an 8-man bracket. It's an invitational, you know? If you saw the quality and the caliber of guys we have, you know, in the tournament, if you're not competing at the highest level, doing, you know, if you're not getting on or trying to get on things like EBI, if you're not getting on or trying to finish, you know, West Coast, East Coast ADCC trials, like if you're not winning the On It Invitational, if you're not doing these big things, like don't really expect to be getting an invitation to Shugyo, you know? Like we chose the people who were in the show based on the fact that we knew they were going to play the sport pure and they weren't going to, there was no gaming, there was no stalling. I mean, we had a stalling rule, but we never gave one stalling call the entire tournament, you know? To me, that's good matchmaking. That's good, you know, that's because we have the right guys. So yep. I love it when, you know, I had someone contact me the other day and said, is there an age limit to be in Shugyo? Okay, this kid's 17 years old, okay? And he said, is there an age limit to be in Shugyo? I said, the age limit is savage.
So stupid.
Qualify, we'll consider it, bro. But dude, come on, like, you know what I mean? Like, this is not. If you're a blue belt, or a purple belt that thinks that you belong in Shugyo, you probably haven't competed against this caliber of athlete before, and you don't understand what you think you're signing up for.
Yeah.
And you've never fought a Nathan Orchard. You've never fought an Ethan Krellinston. You don't get it, okay? Like, the guys that are hitting me up who are, like, legit, like the credible guys, black belts, high-level black belts whose names you know, who are hitting me up saying, I want in on this, those are the people who are going to get the invites first. So that's all I guess I can say in terms of like the invite process. But one thing I did think, I'll pick your brain on this. I just think this is interesting.
Okay.
I'm not against putting up on our website a form capture that just says name, rank, gym, that's it, weight class. If you're down with Shugyo, put your name in there. You know what I mean? And we can get anybody from Craig Jones up to some mouthy blue belt. You know what I mean? And I'm just be curious to see the data of who comes back, because no matter what, you know, if we got 100 guys that want to be in the 170 division, that doesn't mean we're going to do 170 next. It doesn't mean anything. You know, the schedule is going to play out as it is, you know, planned. But we will eventually do all of the normal weight classes, you know, for men and for women eventually. But I would be curious just to see, like you said, a lot of people say that they're about that life, but how many are willing to put their name on paper, you know?
I would recommend that, and here's why. When I've run tournaments in the past that we've televised, and you know what's funny is yesterday I was driving around, and I did this thing where I was like, you know, it's so funny to see how far interviews have come, just for me personally, because I'm like, 4 years ago I was interviewing Gordon Ryan for the very first time at the Nawaza Invitational, and now he's a multiple-time ADCC winner. And in that interview I was looking at, I mean, first of all, his head's tinier than mine there, and then somehow it's more giant than mine. And that's a tall task, because I have a very large head. But it was the core of what he was saying back then, where he was talking about how Gary Tonin was paying for his meals and how he would help sponsor him. And, it, you know, it was a different Gordon. But I wanted to see the difference between doing that, because I got the opportunity to interview with him over the weekend. at the World Jiu-Jitsu Festival. And I was just thinking to myself, there was a moment where they kind of pushed him to do an interview with me right before they started the show. And I looked at him and I was like, I didn't ask for you. You need to go get ready. I don't want this. I already sold this show yesterday with you. We're done, But I looked at him and I go, well, look who they come to sell the show again. Me and you, huh? And he's just laughing because I'm thinking about it. I was like, what a wild ride, man. I know this kid, and, he's obviously learned how to sell himself better, and he's become more confident in his person and all those sorts of things. But when we advertise those things at the end of those shows, I will tell you, those people who put their names and volunteer just with name, gym, weight, and rank, they're the go-getters. So they're usually the people that I've seen. And even though if I didn't put them on a show or I didn't recommend them somewhere else, they found a way somewhere else. So at the very least, I keep a list of savages, if you would, that I know to call at any given time. That I say, hey, listen, I got a thing going. And I know that I can pull that list out if I ever want to. It's just, half the time I always tell them, I'll tell you this much. When I was looking to do for our ADCC accompaniment, I was considering doing some super fights. One of the names to volunteer was one Jordan Hawley. And when Jordan hit me up, I was like, yo, dog, I don't want to waste your time. I'm not flying you out here unless I got somebody who I know would be a hot fire match. And I was like, and I can name a couple names, but no. And he's just like, I'll fly out there. And I was like, I just told you I'm not making you do it. Like, I would have to have a super compelling thing, a super compelling moment, but you're a talent that I would like to see go further. And even though it would be beneficial to me, unless someone crosses my path who's equally as crazy as you are, who will just go anywhere, no questions asked, that's it. But now Jordan's on the list, so that if I ever have some dumb, crazy shit that I've got, I'm like, you're there, dude. So I will tell you, those people, those lists, even in those 4 years, hasn't changed. It's the same people. So just a consideration, because the beautiful part about this is Jordan was a guy who filled in for you, and I feel like you're familiar with him, but those X factors can sometimes be the most compelling television, because then you get to create it and you get to walk them through. And there are a number of athletes that I've interviewed from day one, and Gordon is one of them. So yeah.
And Gordon was once a mouthy purple belt, So it's like today's mouthy purple belts are tomorrow's black belt world champions.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I would highly suggest that. And I mean, obviously, dude, season 2 is a big thing that people they don't know how much work goes into it, because if we're doing the math right now, this is what, October, right? April, May, June, July, August, September, October. That's 7 months of your life to make one season of about 7 episodes. So people don't quite equate, because we say, like, well, Netflix, they better have my series up by next week. And it's like, yo, you binged it. Somebody put a lot of work into that. You're going to wait a year before you get another one. So what can people be doing, though, to increase their odds or to help you guys come up with the season 2?
So that's another funny thing that I was going to say, is that, like, just because of the surprise factor, like, I like to listen to people. I'm not going to say very much, and so I've had a lot of people come to me and say, hey, you should do this, you should do that, this is how you should run season 2. Season 2 should be more like this, it should be more like that. And I just smile and nod, and I just take it all in. It doesn't bother me, it doesn't bruise my ego at all. And a lot of the things people are saying is stuff I've already decided we were going to do or weren't going to do, and so when someone comes up and says, hey, what would be really cool would be if it was a little bit more like this, I don't got to say, yeah, idiot, I already thought of that. All right, but stay in your lane, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, cool. It's like, okay, good. There's a consensus building that everyone wants more of this or less of that, etc. So I love that feedback. I think it's funny. I think a lot of people talk, they say, the nastiest people are on YouTube, the nastiest comments, you know what I mean? Like YouTube, the internet, and the anonymity, it's the nastiest people. Dude, go read the Shugyo comments on any Shugyo episode. It's 99.8% positive. Yep. Like, we have no negative I can barely find a negative comment. And so I feel like, we want to keep.
Well, don't put that challenge out there. They exist. Because I still found this. This is one of my favorite things about the internet, which is, I'm on camera, so it's pretty easy to find me and talk about me. But when I saw people were namelessly just thumbs downing your shit, I was like, why? Who's gonna thumbs down this episode with Keith and Josh? Where I'm like, that's savage level things. Like, I don't know. There's never a way that they ascribe or show who they are. So to me, I'm like, yo, if I have a voice, I want to make sure that I'm putting attention to that. Because I'm not saying like, oh shit, a lot of people don't like this. I'm saying y'all aren't even given a reason why you don't like this. So it's a different thing, because I feel that all forms, and especially when I do memes, I always tell people memes are great feedback. If you're listening right, you're understanding that's a public talking back to you. So when people make memes about us or we do stuff like that, we have no issue with it. But I'm always telling people, I'm like, you better be funny. Because
I can stomach it, because it's like, we'll have 126 upvotes and 4 downvotes. I can handle that. I can handle those numbers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That doesn't kill me. And people aren't nitpicking it. Again, like, everything's been real modest and awesome. We just crossed over 1,000 followers on YouTube. We have a little over 1,500 followers on Instagram. This was our first step out the gate, and this was our first jumping onto the scene. And we had some really awesome people come in as technical advisors. I even got some excellent feedback from Eddie Bravo himself, in terms of like how to make things look better. Before episode 1 ever came out, I took the episode down to LA and showed it to Eddie, and I got feedback from him. And he obviously has a lot of experience in film and television now with all these successful PIs. So we're building. We're in the building stages. We want more people to know about Shugyo. We want people to know that Shugyo is on YouTube and you can go binge watch it if you want. We want people to go out and watch and really detail those fights, because the fights are out, in terms of the full content. Something I think that hasn't happened yet, but I would love to do with someone like yourself, or someone, I know that Brandon McCaffrey said he's interested in this. Quite a few other people have said they're interested, but I think it'd be interesting just to go through and watch the fights and do a little bit of a fight companion kind of play-by-play breakdown, because there are some moments in some of the matches that people don't understand how significant they are or how impressive they are, or what was necessarily going on. And just as a black belt, I would love to sit down and say, hey, do you guys see what he's doing with his ankle right here? Because it's important what's going on with that ankle, or do you see where he's placed his hand? That's an important detail. One thing I can think of is in Sean Weisenberg versus Rafael Domingos. It's one of my favorite things. You would never know it. Sean's a lifelong wrestler, right? Rafael goes for an ankle pick, foot sweep on Sean. He lifts Sean's leg up, throws Sean up in the air, throws Sean on his back, okay? But Sean's a wrestler. So he's thrown on his back, and like a fucking cat, he lands on his stomach. You know what I mean? Like, he has the awareness and the body control that while he's getting thrown over his head, he's able to not land on his back, and he actually turns over and lands on his stomach, And you would just miss that in the match. But to me, that's so interesting, and so there's so much in that you would just maybe glaze over, So I would love to break some matches down. I think that'd be fun.
Well, I had offered generously to do something. I'm so generous. Look at me. I had offered, like an idiot, I had offered to do something, but I know the importance of let it exist and let it breathe first. And I wanted to see what it was. And you're like, yo, just kind of feel what you're feeling on it and go from there. And I started realizing, I was like, there's a real opportunity to do a Let's Watch on this and all that sort of stuff, especially since it lives on there. I mean, I love the fact that you put on there, this show lives on in perpetuity for the people on YouTube. And that seemed to be a very important sticking point for you. I'm never opposed to working with Brandon McCaffrey, so maybe I'll give him a quick chat. But I would say this. I think whatever it is you're looking to do next, obviously we're always happy to help and do all that sort of stuff. I think it's really important that people, if they want to see something, I think they kind of have to fight for it themselves. I think they have to do their side of it. So even though those numbers are good, they can always be better. And I think it's really important that we get the people to continue supporting it, continue sharing it, and stuff like myself or Brandon or other people like us in this community. The more that we can bring attention to it, the more likely we see a season 2. And I think, you know, like I said, when my wife came in and she saw it, it didn't take her long once I said The Ultimate Fighter, but for grappling, and she goes, okay. And then she was in it, and she just goes, I understand that's what they're trying to do, and I understand that's where we need to go. So, you know, if you guys are, if anything, you'll always be one of the firsts, and I think that you put it down well, but I think that people shouldn't rest on the laurels of saying that's just going to happen again. So any support that people can give on attention for it or putting sponsors your way, that would be great. Athletes, obviously, here's a hint, just from a marketing guy. If you want to be on it, you should probably share it like a lot, because maybe that might get you in. Doesn't promise you're going to get in, but at the very least, it lets us know that we've got a Jordan Hawley on our hand of somebody who's down for the cause, win or lose, and that's really what we need. So we don't need athletes who are just going to show up and be like, well, I competed, it's all those dummies. It's like, nah, this is a full-scale effort. So, you know, it's part of the reason why every time you put up, you're like, get hype. And I was like, I can't get no more hype. I'm done. I'm done, dude. I'm ready. Just show it to me. And you know what I mean? Like those little itty-bitty teases of like saying that. It's like, I'm not the only one, my man. There's a lot of us who got really stoked and excited. So let's do this. Why don't we put a pin on this conversation? Is there something you would like to say to everybody who was watching this season? Because you had a lot of diehards who were.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody that supported the first season. I think that, you know, like you just said, we need to keep sharing it, keep exposing new people to it. There's always going to be, you know, 150 new white belts in your community that have never seen this before. There's always people. I mean, that's some of the beauty of jiu-jitsu, and especially being a higher ranked person in jiu-jitsu, is there's always new people to share the love with. And there's always, you know, that the awe that someone gets the first time they see a kimura or armbar executed properly, you know, that's never going to go away. So just like that, Shugyo is never going to go away either. And it's a story that you can share with people, and no spoilers. You know, you can just say, hey, just start right at episode 1 and just go forward from there. You know, we have some merch coming out. We have this T-shirt that I'm wearing with the Shugyo brand on it, and then we have this hat also that I'm wearing. It says Shugyo on the side. And so those will both be available soon, probably via our website. Stay up on our Instagram, follow our YouTube for more updates and stuff like that. But yeah, we're gonna have some interesting ideas, and I think the fans will start to get a sense of when season 2 is ramping up, because we want to. One thing I'll say is we want to be a little bit more interactive. You know, we want to be interactive. We want to interact with our fans. We want to interact with the Shugyo fan base. And just because, I told it to a lot of people, and you said it too, just because you don't get on this season or next season, look at how many people have gotten an opportunity because EBI blew up. If EBI never blew up, if it was just EBI 1, EBI 2, yeah, Nathan Orchard and Gary Tonin, those guys would have still got a shot because they earned their shot. They were ready then, you know? Mm-hmm. But now that we're on EBI 14, 17, look how many other people have gotten that chance. You know what I mean? Years down the road. So everything that we do, if Shugyo is something we care about, if no time limit, submission only grappling, and not just that, but telling the story of the grapplers, if that is something that we care about, then we're all invested in it. We all want to blow it up, you know? So that's my angle, you know?
Well, it's good, man. I cannot tell you how proud I am of you and your team. There's so many compliments I have for everybody there. And you're now part of the community, sir. You are now part of the producing side. You've been on the competing side, but now you're on the producing side. And there is something great about giving something back to the athletes that many of us feel in this community whenever we can do something that we think is interesting or worthy. So from now here on in, you know what I mean? Like that is you. And you've been doing it in different forms, but this is one that I think could go further, and I love so much about it that I think, should we be granted with further seasons, I think it could be a very, very helpful element to our community. So I root for you and I root for your team, and I'm glad that it exists. So at the very least, you can see that. And I want to compliment you because the day after your ADCC, you came up with the tagline. And I always tell people, I'm like, when I see something so good that either I get mad that I didn't make it, or like I see someone who puts a meme out that's so funny that I say, where's your branding? I immediately have to tell the people, like I have to message them. And you put submission guaranteed. And I thought, that's a great branding element. Like Shugyo Invitational, submission guaranteed. It manages expectations. It tells people what the whole branding is. It explains it in such a short element. So I would say if you could trademark that, go do that right now. Otherwise, a very friendly neighborhood grappling hour host might do it himself and then charge you for it. So
We'll see a use in commerce shortly.
Excellent. Good. Well, Phil, I want to say thank you. We're going to get you on out of here. If you guys haven't done so yet, go visit Shugyo on YouTube. Go subscribe there. Go find them on all social media. That means Facebook and Instagram. Follow them and give them your love and support, and continue sharing the videos. And maybe a little bit sooner, you guys will see some collaborations with us. My thanks to Phil Schwartz. I will be right back to close out the show. Tell you guys a little bit about the Jiu-Jitsu Festival because it was a little, it happened. That's what happened. Yeah, we're going to talk about it like that. So when we come back from this commercial break, I hope you guys enjoy this last segment that we did with our good friend JJ Wilson, who won his Bellator fight over the weekend, but about a month ago at the Ultimate Mat Warriors, took on one good friend from down in the San Diego region in Robbie Labella. For Ronnie Labella and him had an epic video game encounter with some Street Fighter versus a Capcom. I hope you guys enjoy it. We'll be right back after that.
This is where it all goes down. This is where we end it.
This isn't where it all goes down. There's also a Matt. Say to him, I want you to look him dead in the eyes, and I want you to tell him what you would say to somebody if you were fighting him right now.
You're gonna die.
It's about who wants it more. That's what this is coming down to.
We gotta have a rematch.
Get two competitors to play the video game console against one another, but not only did they bring it on that video game console, but their match was straight fire. There was a series of exchanges between the two that kept the crowd elevated and excited throughout. You see, there was a lot of great escapes by Ronnie. We went back and forth, oscillating between standing on the feet and getting some wrestling, and then doing some great work from guard. I thought they were very evenly matched, and it proved to be quite a fun experiment, especially here. You're going to try and pull off a twister in front of a 10th Planet crowd? You better not. And he didn't. I mean, Ronnie was able to get out of it, which then took them to overtime periods. The first period of overtime saw Ronnie start to work the offensive. However, JJ was able to get out in a short amount of time. Pressure's on Ronnie to go ahead and make some escapes, and he's doing a good job here. However, JJ does an impeccable job keeping that grip to secure an armbar finish here at the bottom of the first period of overtime. Now, at this point, I'm figuring I should go try and get the two of them together to go ahead and settle this, because Ronnie won the first game of Marvel vs. Capcom. JJ won the match, but the two of them agree right then and right there. They want to settle it with one more round of Marvel vs. Capcom. And that brings us to now.
Yes, the rematch. The rematch. We're 1-1. This is the championship. We're 1-1. Yeah.
Who knew that we had two gentlemen that were going to be facing each other a little bit later? So you already saw the first match, then the second match happened on the mats. Now both of them, I don't know, why are both of your shirts off?
Well, he ripped mine. Grabbed his and ripped it.
I just realized, I was like, I've never facilitated a video game playoff where both guys were like, yo bro, let's go.
And we're playing again and poof, I was like, oh shit, this is real now.
Okay. Well, where are we at? Is it 1-1 now?
Yes, it's
1-1. So you won that one, you won this, and this is the tiebreaker.
This is the tiebreaker.
So what are you guys going to play? Are you going back to Street Fighter?
We should go back to it, yeah. Yeah, the same one.
Same one. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the only way to do it. He's got to pick the same people.
So was it was Marvel versus Capcom? It was Marvel versus Capcom.
Yeah.
You both know what it is. So here's what the thing is. I'm going to step out of frame. Gentlemen, this is for all the marbles, and I mean, we don't have money, so literally marbles is what this is about. We don't have these fancy checks, and if we did, we wouldn't leave them backstage like some people.
That's where they're all at, man.
All right, gentlemen, good luck.
Let's do it.
All right. This is the rematch of matches, of all matches.
I need to figure out how to do those range attacks,
I could,
man.
yeah, it's this middle one right here, this top one. For Mega Man, that's what the cannon is. All right, I am gonna go.
Oh, it's this guy. I remember this guy.
I got a hit start, yeah.
Would you have
This
preferred
guy-
he been this helpful to you midway through the match when he was trying to take you down and be like, yo, dog, this is how you finish this? And combate. All right, Mega Man comes in with the first attack right now. This is the best part.
I figured it out, man.
17 hit? What the hell, dude? Oh my god. You are lucky.
Damn. Okay, he's got the secret hacks right now.
I got the secret.
Oh, shit! He pile drived him with a spinning pile driver. I saw him try to do that in the match and it didn't go. Oh, it's a 17-24 hit.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness. Okay, he's already taken
Oh,
set
no!
two. Now we got Wolverine coming in.
shit, I missed!
Didn't do much. However, War Machine is coming back with a 7 hit right now.
Oh no, I'm gonna lose! Oh,
no, no, no.
Not again! Not
Wolverine
again!
is looking weak right now. Can he make a comeback?
Yeah, there we go! Oh god damn it!
That was intense. Guys, come back over here. Okay. This is the most intense thing I've ever seen. Gentlemen, first of all, great exhibition of sportsmanship on both fights. Explain to me what you're feeling right now, man.
Disappointment.
Kick my ass in real life.
Disappointed.
I gotta be honest with you. Which is more extreme? Feeling euphoric from winning the match or feeling disappointed from winning the tiebreaker?
Losing the tiebreaker.
Losing the tiebreaker.
I know, dude. Okay, now talk to me. Do you feel like you redeemed yourself right now?
No. Even in the first game, I was like, shit, if I win this, I'm gonna jinx myself in the real match. I'm gonna think I got it in the bag. That one Marvel versus.
I gotta be honest, did that change anything for you guys out there? When you were out there, because I saw you guys both kind of like bump fists.
giggle,
Like,
yeah.
You had already done that.
I told him, I
Obviously
go, get the rematch right now. Let's get the rematch.
I like the idea. I walked over, Octavio and I looked at each other, we're like, oh, we should group them together. Oh, they've already found each other.
Yeah.
Oh, they've already rematched each other. Well, gentlemen, I want to say thank you both for being the first individuals. You are both so goddamn sweaty. That's a lot of human sweat. I'm just letting you know, in the future, when you look back at this, people are going to be like, how did this happen? And why the hell
And
did
the
this happen
Marvel
like
vs.
that?
Capcom game.
In a Marvel vs. Capcom situation where it's a rematch of in-game and out-of-game real life, but we're going back to in-game. We had to have the shirts on for our in real life battle, but this time
We didn't have to.
This time it was all the marbles, right? All the fucking. He said, I said, it's game time.
Right,
good, yeah.
You have an undefeated record here. We're going to have to find somebody for you to take on. JJ, you've got a fight coming up on October 4th,
Yes,
correct?
dude.
Very much looking forward to that.
Good luck,
This is what it's all about.
Yeah.
This great competitive sportsmanship. You guys compete, and then you're rooting for him on October 4th, which is going to be great. We always love seeing you, so that's going to be on Bellator. Be sure to watch that. My thanks to both of these gentlemen, JJ, Ronnie. You guys are the best. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ref.
Oh, man.
I won't get too much of that. JJ, good ass day, man. Absolutely. It's fun. I needed it. That was rad.
All right, everybody. Well, just to kind of recap things, if you guys haven't seen the earlier parts of today's episodes, they did break into two. I'm very sorry about that. Unfortunately, you have to kind of piece them together. I think on YouTube it might actually just be one episode, one part. So if you guys want to see the interviews that we did, we had Phil from Shugyo, and then we had the winner of Shugyo Season 1, we think. Definitely Season 1 at least. Nathan Orchard, who... just watching him take so many second places, the dude's a beast, and I couldn't be happier that he won this big tournament. But that tournament was filled with savages all the way around. All other 7 competitors were really, really amazing and fun. And just as a reminder to you guys, if you have not had the opportunity to do so yet, We just want to remind you that if you haven't had the opportunity to go up and actually look in, sorry, got a message over there from one Josh from the show. Just to let you guys know, he needs some help. He was battling cancer. Didn't know that he was when he was competing, but lo and behold, that's what we hate to see for competitors. So if you have the opportunity to go ahead and donate, we would love for you guys to be able to do that. Let's remind you of this, you guys. I was this weekend asked to do some fun stuff for the Jiu-Jitsu Festival at the very last minute. I was asked to serve as the MC for it, so my thanks to those good people over there, but my hugest thanks to the production crew, who was amazing. These guys were able to do things on the fly that I was supremely impressed by, and they weren't Jiu-Jitsu people. So it's not like they compete or they train even, but they were very, very enthusiastic, and they had very good feedback about our sport. So I was very pleased to work with that entire group of people. Before we go ahead and close on out, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's tuned in. If you haven't had the chance, go at us on all the major social media platforms. But until then, it's been a great day for grappling. We'll see you guys